That's,
The dawn of a new age.
Oh my god.
Check. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? My name is Chase. This is New Age Comics, of course. This is episode, I have to refer to my notes, 27 of the weekly pod. Hope everybody's doing awesome. I'm doing all right. Myself. It is late at the moment, and I'm chilling in my room, and I'm hot, and I have the window open because I'm trying to cool off desperately. You know, there's something funny about when I start these podcasts. I always, without fail, will turn on the microphone and just kind of let it roll for like a variable amount of time. This time it was about 20 minutes that I sat here staring at it before I was like, okay, let's fucking do this. You know, I guess it's the performance anxiety. You know, it's a real thing. I'm not exactly someone with like a theater background or some kind of performance background. So, you know, I don't know how to cope with that. It is a bit of a nerve-wracking thing. That's why the beginning of my podcasts always suck. Okay, anyway, a couple things to jump into before we talk the comics. Obviously, New Age Comics, if you're new here, thank you for joining us. You're in for some comic talk, and that's pretty much all I got to summarize for you. A couple things I got to knock out here. It is 12:41 in the morning where I'm at. I used to do it a lot later, as some day one veteran fans remember. I guess you don't have to be a fan of the show. You could just follow me on Twitter, because I used to tweet like pretty much like, hey, I'm recording right now. And man, some of them were crazy. I used to record at like 3 a.m. sometimes, and I would record for like 2 hours. So, and I would leave my home to go to campus. Jesus, it was ridiculous. It's no longer, but I do have a couple fun things for this introduction. And while I display these fun things, I actually got to describe a little change I'm going to be making to the show. So first of all, I am drinking something here. I got a Miller High Life. I got a 24-ounce can. It cost me $2 or something like that. So cheers, mates, as some of my British, English, European friends say. I should have said I was drinking some champagne, because it is the champagne of beers. But I also have an incense rolling, or it's about to roll, and I'm gonna go try and light it without pulling my entire recording setup down, because my mic is connected to this. So. But, ooh, can you hear me? So, all right, here we go. Got some Nog Chomp. Awesome. Wunderbar. That is going to be smelling up the room. Really nice. I love some Nog Chomp, man. But I didn't come here to talk about incense or beer or anything like that. I'm here to talk comics, but there is a little catch with the show today. So, longtime listeners will remember I always do a news segment. I always said it was my favorite segment to do, but you know, I'm skipping it. I'm skipping it this episode. I might scrap it. It's sort of in like a creative limbo with me, and there's a reason for that. It's because I am going to be aiming here with this episode to be really short. And when I say really short, I mean in comparison to some of my old episodes. Even my last episode, I think, was like 50 minutes or something like that. You know, I just feel like the show could be shorter. You know what I mean? Short and sweet. Say goodbye to like 10-minute comic ramblings, because really they're just rambles of me kind of repeating myself over and over again about niche, minute points. And welcome the era of quick thoughts. Not exactly quick thoughts. It is just me on the pod. So, of course, you're getting all of my thoughts, but I'm going to try and be concise with it, just to make it a little more entertaining. But speaking of entertainment, I want to plug this as well. I'm sure most of you already know this or are already listening to it, but we're doing the WandaVision podcast. Each episode covered as it comes out the week of. It's been a lot of fun. Trevor's been doing it with me, and the only reason I'm shouting it out is because we only have one episode left of WandaVision, thus the pod. So if you haven't been listening to it, go binge it. Go binge the show, because the show is amazing. But like I said, y'all already know that. But the last thing that I want to shout out, and this is something that WandaVision podcast listeners will already know about. As of the last episode I published, New Age Comics has acquired its first sponsor of the show. So, like golf clap to me, I guess I'm very conceited, but it's exciting. I've been doing this for what now? I guess I started last August, so it's February, about 8 months now. And 8 months of podcasting is a lot of work, like I've lamented about online here and there. It's a ton of work doing the show. So yeah, I'm really excited to be running ads. This episode will not feature one, so don't worry. This might be the last. No, it won't be the last, but this is not going to feature the ad. But I wanted to just shout it out. Sort of a free ad. I guess I'll just get into it too. It's for Sin Eater, a Kickstarter comic. Shows how well I know the product. But no, I've actually read some of Sin Eater to do the ad, and it's actually a really good series. So go back it. Like I said, sort of a free informal ad. It's just, I'm just expressing that I am excited to finally be making a bit of money off the show. I've been putting a lot of work into it, so getting a little payment is nice. And then I believe in the project. So go back it. John, who is the writer of it, has been really cool. I've really enjoyed working with him. So definitely check it out. I'll have the link in the description, but like I said, an informal, formal ad. But despite that extremely long introduction that I just gave, I'm now going to be getting into the comics. And I got a lot here for you. I got like 14 comics or something. This is like a huge stack, humongous stack. And a lot of books I'm really excited to dish about, but no news segment. So I'm going to be hopping right into the books. But even though I don't have a news segment, we're still kicking with the categories that I'm rocking. And the first one is the King in Black section. There were 3 King in Black books I picked up. And really, it wasn't this last week. These are late books, of course, as y'all are expecting. It is what it is. I'm pumping through them. Here we go. But I picked up King in Black 4, Savage Avengers 18, and Planet of the Symbiotes issue number 2. Of course, we will be kicking off with the King in Black issue number 4. Now, this issue screams penultimate issue. Like if you understand what I mean by that phrase, it's the one before the last. Like this is the perfect example of what a penultimate issue should be for any comic event. This whole event, Noel has been kicking the shit out of our heroes. That's pretty much been the theme. 3 issues of shit kicking. And here things get turned around very hard. Dylan enters the chat. He is using his symbiote powers. He has this control over Null. Some really crazy scenes going there. And then a bunch of comebacks via Dylan of our other heroes. We get Thor back. We get Storm back. We get, I think, pretty much everybody back. Cap is back. The X-Men are back. I think they were taken over, and now they are not anymore. Very exciting. I was very pleased with this issue. Tons of action, just a total blast. I mean, each page is just like a jaw dropper. You turn one page, you're like, holy shit. And you're like, okay, can it get crazier? Yup, it gets crazier. And then you're like, okay, well, that has to be it. No, because the ending of this issue, holy shit. I'm in a group chat with a few guys. We are pretty much the Venom conspiracy theorists. A couple of my friends over on Twitter, shout out to y'all. If you're listening, you know who you are. And we really were talking a lot about this concept that gets introduced in this particular issue, the King in Light or the God of Light or something like that. Pretty much the antithesis to Null. He's the God of the Dark, the King in Black, hardy har. This issue gives us, direct confirmation that that's where the story was going. We pretty much already knew that that's where it was going. But more particularly, we get a specific inhabitant, if that's the right word, of the God of Light. It is like a power. It's not exactly a figure, but that's something that Jean Grey kind of uncovers here. While I guess she's not reading Noel's mind per se, but she's like interfacing with the hive, and she learns that some interesting shit that apparently Noel isn't the first King in Black. He's just like the current King in Black. I don't know. It seems like every piece of Marvel lore is always going to be like, well, there was something before that. It's essentially like what the culture of retcons. And another thing I didn't shout out in the beginning of this episode, of course, I'm giving spoilers. That's still a thing. And Eddie at the end here, spoiler in 3, 2, 1, gets the God of Light powers. Holy shit. This is just crazy. He rises out of bed. He's been dead for the last few issues of the event and of Venom. That's pretty much where it leaves us off. Crazy cliffhanger. I'm loving this event. Like I said, a perfect penultimate issue. And there are so many theories kind of rolling out of this. Are we going to keep seeing Venom after King in Black? Is this going to be the end? We all know that Donny Cates is hopping off at issue 200 of Venom, which is very sad. But this is one thing me and my conspiracy theorist friends have been talking about. There could be a chance where Donny Cates keeps writing Eddie, but not exactly Venom, which would involve some sort of like mantle shifting, of course. It could happen. It could not happen. We really only can wait and see. Solicitations obviously tell the full story, but I feel like Cates is going to take a little bit of a break. He has started a few new projects over these last year or so since he started his Venom run. So I would not be surprised if he did something else, if he moved on, did something else. Sorry, I'm moving a moon pie. There we go. Perfect. Miller High Life holder. I could see him doing something else. I won't belabor it any longer, but I will say I forgot to shout out the creative team, but I almost don't have to. It's Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman, and Frank Martin on the colors. Amazing team. They're killing it. The event's been great. And I might as well talk about the Demon Days bit at the end there. I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I have to say, I sort of don't understand the Peach Momoko hype. I mean, I get it. I like her art. She's a great artist. But she has a lot of hype right now. Like, so much so that Marvel threw her own series. And don't get me wrong, I love creator written and drawn series as much as the next guy. But I was kind of just like, where's all this hype coming from for Peach? I don't know. It's cool, and I'm definitely going to be trying Demon Days out. But keeping with the King in Black, I'm now talking about Savage Avengers issue number 18. This is written by Gary Duggan. This particular issue, or these last two King in Black tie-ins, have been drawn by Kev Walker, with colors by Hava Tartaglia. So this tie-in has been the most least tie-in, if I have to say so myself. It really hasn't done anything extremely impactful with the event. So it's just kind of been like acknowledging it. There are some themes that definitely do get mentioned in here, and even carry along the plot a little bit, namely Conan wielding a symbiote sword of some sort, which at the end of the last issue in my review, I remember saying, holy shit, we're getting nullified Conan. I don't think we are, because in this issue, the symbiote kind of reveals itself. It seemed to be kind of like a rogue symbiote or something. And there's even some connections. Apparently, the symbiote that now Conan is bonded with was the original symbiote in the first arc of Savage Avengers. I mean, this is getting into like weird lore. I remember we were all joking at the time of that first Savage Avengers arc. It was like, damn, Venom's the new Wolverine. He's in every single goddamn comic. But it looks like Duggan is tying it in a little bit. And speaking of tie-ins, Duggan is really the king of tying. I don't know. He's trying to do a Donny Cates, you could say, where he's pulling in aspects of his own universe. Deadpool is in this comic a lot, which is just perfect banter between Conan and Deadpool. I loved it. It was super funny. And then he even brings in the Marauders at the end here, which is his X-Men book at the moment, which I always like when writers do that, when they pull their own elements together. It just makes the universe feel full. You know what I mean? So I'm liking Savage Avengers. I don't think it's going to be a tie-in any longer. No, it does appear to be a tie-in. The next issue, issue 19, is going to be a tie-in. I mean, that's cool. I'm digging it. But like I said, it's the most least King in Black tie-in, if that makes sense. You don't really have to read it, I would say. But speaking of books that I do think you have to be reading, Planet of the Symbiotes, issue number 2 dropped 2 weeks ago at this point. This is it's a double story, so it's like split down the middle, which I think is neat. So we got a decent creative team here. I'll kind of just list them off. First story is Jeffrey Thorne and Kyle Hotz doing the art there, with Rachel Rosenberg on the colors. And then the second story here is by Mark Bernardin and Jan Bazaldua, with colors by Rachel Rosenberg as well. So like I said, this is a split down the middle type story. The first story is about the USA kaiju, or the American kaiju. Easily, this was my favorite of the two. But that being said, I think this tie-in series is maybe one of the best of the King in Black tie-ins. I do like tie-ins, okay? Tie-ins get a really bad rap, and I think rightfully so. Rightfully so, because a lot of tie-ins are a cash grab. Let's just admit it. But I do think tie-ins present a medium that can be really cool. When you tie in a lot to an event, it makes, like I was mentioning earlier with the Savage Avengers, it makes the event and the universe feel full. It makes it feel real and that it's impacting things. And I love, my favorite part of tie-ins is when it focuses on niche, small characters that you really haven't seen in a while. That's easily my favorite part. And that's pretty much exactly what this Planet of the Symbiotes tie-in book is designed to do. Because when was the last time we got the American kaiju in anything? I mean, I think he's been in a few things here and there, but I loved his story in here. I mean, and they even nail some like emotional components with turning him into like this weapon. It was really well written. And then for the second story, this is about a character I don't have a ton of knowledge on, but it's about not Prowler. I almost said Prowler. Is it Prowler? I think it is Prowler. But they actually refer to him as the Hornet at the end here, which, like I said, I don't have a lot of knowledge on this character or this universe because I'm not a big Spidey reader, as a lot of y'all know, by my lack of Spider-Man throughout this podcast. But I really liked the second half. I mean, it's just fun to see street level heroes kind of being like, okay, fuck, time to do my thing as the guy who protects like 10 people. I just love it. So we got a pretty good haul of King in Black stuff this week, and it's kind of wrapping up. It's coming to an end, so I'm really excited to see how this all kind of comes to a conclusion. All right, for the next section, I got the DC non-future state books. And I mean, whenever I do this, since all of DC is future state at the moment, it's pretty much only one book. So I guess this whole segment will be morphed together at some point in the next month or so. But right now I'm talking Batman and Catwoman, issue number 3. This is written by Tom King and drawn by the amazing Clay Mann and colors by Tome More. This is the most Tom King book I think I've ever read. More than Mr. Miracle, more than Strange Adventures, more than his own damn Batman run. It is so Tom King head to toe. And I'll get this out of the way. Tom King is a polarizing writer. I do like his work. Even some of his most polarizing work, I did enjoy. Heroes in Crisis, honestly. I was new to comics at the time, so maybe if I gave it a reread, I would dislike it. But I liked Heroes in Crisis. A lot of people hate it for the character deaths, and apparently I think people are hyperbolic. They say it like ruined Wally West. It definitely put him in a weird place right now, I'll give you that, but I'm also not a Flash reader, so maybe I'm the person who doesn't give a fuck. Either way, this is the most Tom King book I think I've ever read. There's tons of storylines going on, but I think it's interesting how Tom King chose to kind of be a little subversive with his storytelling here, because Batman and Catwoman, you think the book would be about Batman and Catwoman, and it is, don't get me wrong, but it's not about like the current state Batman and Catwoman. Of course, that is a timeline that is present in this book, but there's like 4 or something like that, because we're also getting like a future. I mean, this is some loaded language at this point, but we're getting a future state where the daughter of Selena and Bruce is now, I don't know if they actually give her a superhero name, but she's like the Batgirl, Batwoman, Bat something right now in this future world. And interestingly enough, Dick Grayson is now like the commissioner of the police. An interesting way to take the story. I know a lot of Batman fans particularly see Dick as the successor, if that's how you say it, to Batman or Bruce Wayne. But Tom King takes it in a new direction here. Like I said, there's so many timelines going on. One of them is the elderly Batman and Catwoman. I guess this is just the future state still. So maybe there's really not as many timelines as I would put on. But trust me, it is definitely a little confusing at times, but I think it's one of those stories we just have to kind of let it ride. You know what I mean? Just let it ride and enjoy it while it lasts. Because I have to say, Clay Mann's art here is amazing. There is a little controversy surrounding this book, particularly with in this first, literally these first 2 pages. Helena, I think is her name. She is looking quite skimpy. I don't know. Maybe skimpy is actually not the right word for it. That might imply like showing a lot of skin. She's not showing much skin, but her suit is extremely tight. And I will admit her suit is way unrealistically tight. Okay. But I'll also say this. Y'all ain't never read some Clay Man before, because all his art is so horny. And I like it. And I'm gonna defend this a little bit. I'm not going to defend the Helena thong. Her thong is in the second page here. I do think that was ridiculous. Maybe not ridiculous, but a little, the artists were feeling themselves, maybe quite literally, while they were drawing it. But I will say, I will defend Tom King's embrace of sexuality in this book. It's something we don't get to see in a lot of comics, I have to say. And I think he's towing the line pretty well here. The Helena thing, I think, is an art thing. I've seen some people chalk it up to the colorer, some people the artist. Her thong is definitely showing through her suit. Definitely not an important detail at all. But I do enjoy that Tom King is embracing sexuality throughout this book. It is a Black Label book, so it's nice to see it, I guess. And maybe you'll call me horny. I definitely am, but I enjoy the sexual moments in the book. See, now I sound weird, but they do embrace sex in the book. It's something a lot of comics obviously shy away from. So it's a neat, what's the word? Just like a wild card to kind of throw into your poll. But like I said, I'm really enjoying this series. It's really interesting, and if you're confused, me too. Let's just let it ride. So before I start my next segment, I'm just going to be fully honest with the listeners out there. I just took my pants off because for some reason I just started sweating like crazy and getting really hot. So I'm trying to remedy that. And I realized that's maybe the worst way to start a comic review, is saying I just took my pants off. But I'm really excited to talk about this next book. Now we're in the indie corner. But this is exciting. I'm reviewing an indie book from a publisher I haven't talked about before on the pod. And this is an Aftershock comic. Aftershock Publishers. I don't know how you say it. But Aftershock, they've been doing their thing. They have quite a few books under their belt, and they've gained some decent notoriety. But I was put onto this book by a guy I associate with on Twitter. And this is Shadow Doctor issue number 1, written by Peter Calloway, drawn by Georges Genti, and colors by Juancho with an exclamation point. I have to specify that. But this is easily one of the most unique and one-of-a-kind comics I have ever read in my life. I'm really happy the guy who put me up onto this did. I guess I'll just get the elevator pitch out of the way. This comic is about a 1930s Black doctor who, because it's the 1930s, it's the Great Depression, racism is in full swing in America. He is on financial troubles, and after getting out of med school or college or whatever it was at the time, and now that he is a able-bodied doctor, he falls in with the mob. I mean, already that is an extremely cool elevator pitch. Now, what if I told you that this was a true story, like literally a true story, as the comic itself states in big, bold letters on the first page in the first panel? This comic is based off an entirely true story. And interestingly enough, it's actually about the writer of the comic, Peter Calloway. It's about his grandfather, which his name is Nathaniel Calloway. And I mean, I'm already geeking about this book. I was so enthralled with it just immediately from the jump. I mean, just the aspect of realism is super interesting to me, and they really nail it here. There are moments, of course, that might be a little comic booky, maybe a little played up, but if you read all the back matter and you kind of just you can start to understand what angle Peter Calloway is coming at this book, and he's coming at it completely honestly. I mean, and I realize I'm glossing over the actual events in the book, but I think the back matter, it's not what sells this book, but I think it's what hooks you. Like if you read the back matter to Shadow Doctor and you don't pull this series instantly, then I don't know what to tell you because I don't know if any comic is for you. But Peter Calloway is saying that he's going to be telling the story of his grandfather's life in full honesty. He specifically laments about how his family likes to tell the cool parts, but does not like to tell the bad parts. They like to paint him morally good, where Peter sees his grandfather's life, definitely as all of our lives, in the moral gray. Already, I love that. I love that storytelling approach. And now what if I told you the comic itself is actually just awesome? Like, the art is really good. The dialogue is really cutting and very realistic. I would be curious if some of like the smaller in between moments, or if all the details are like true. For instance, there's a sequence here where our main character Nathaniel is applying at several, I think, hospitals. Yes, applying at several hospitals. Or no, he's applying for several bank loans to start his own private practice. As an example of like a detail that could be smudged, I wonder if he applied to as many as they might present in this book. They really don't give you an exact number, but those are the details that, of course, writers telling historical stories can fudge a little bit. You know what I mean? It's not going to be 100% real, like, documentary, you know, because it is a comic book ultimately at the end of the day. But I can fully expect that, like, the big swings with this book, like the big story moments, are real. So I can only assume that the last page here is real, which, you know, I don't want to spoil it because it's a cool reveal, but I also kind of want to talk about it. I'll just say it. Our main character, Nathaniel, he approaches the mob at the end of the book here after being denied so many loans, and he comes face to face with a very notorious mob figure in American history, Scarface. I'm going to assume that that's real. And see, I'm not even like a big mafia knowledge haver. So I don't even know, like, frankly, if you would ask me if Scarface was a real figure, I could not have told you. So this book is going to be teaching me a ton, and I'm super excited for that. Such an awesome book. Please, guys, check this book out. You won't regret it. Give the first issue a read, and it's just an amazing story. All right, so moving into the DC Future State section. It's been an interesting section in the podcast so far. I think I started out with Future State really enjoying it. And as it went on, some of its problems were laid bare to me as a reader. But I will just get right into it. I'm going to start with Next Batman, issue number 4. Humongous creative team here. I'll rattle it off. John Ridley, Vita Ayala, and Paula Sevenbergen are on the writing staff here. Laura Braga, Eneke, I believe is how you say it, and Emanuela Lupacino are doing the pencils here. And for colors, we have, gosh, some of these names are really difficult to pronounce. But on the colors, we have Arif Prianto, Trish Mulvihill, and John Cleese. I believe that's how you say all those names. Apologies if any of them were butchered. Again, humongous team here. Not the biggest one of the week. I will get into that book later. But as my thoughts for Next Batman, in general, my thoughts on this series, this is the end. Issue 4 is the end. And I gotta say, guys, I think the Next Batman really was forgettable. I could not bring myself to, like, I don't know, not that I don't care about this story, but it felt like I had no reason to care. Unfortunately, walking out of this book, The Next Batman, is the introduction of Jace/Tim Fox as Batman. Personally, I think it should say something substantive about the character. And there's a lot to say. Batman is a mantle now, given that he has taken it up. He is the first black Batman. It is in this crazy futuristic world with a police state. I think there's a lot that could be worked with there. And unfortunately, I just don't think John Ridley really, I just don't think he really took the shots. I loved the first issue. Don't get me wrong. I thought the first issue was a great setup. I thought it set up something really interesting with this Bane gang and these kids in it. But that never got followed up here. We just got this really, in my opinion, throwaway plot of these parents that killed someone. It just turned into like, oh, the magistrate, they're after us. I don't know. I just feel like it was really forgettable. And personally, the Batgirls and Gotham City Sirens stories here at the end were also really forgettable to me. Like, definitely difficult to get through at times. I don't know. I just think Next Batman didn't hit the mark. That's not to say if you enjoyed it that I think your opinion is bad or something like that. I'm happy that someone out there can enjoy it. I think I wanted more. I think I wanted more out of a new figure taking on the Batman mantle. But getting into a future state book that I genuinely did enjoy, and it does feature Tim Fox Batman, which is Nightwing. We got issue number 2 this week. Personally, I feel like this story did more justice to Jace Tim Fox as Nightwing, or excuse me, as Batman, than the next Batman did. And I think maybe it's not fair to draw that comparison, but I feel like it is. I just think this story took the dichotomy given with Dick Grayson and then a new Batman figure. And I think that relationship friction alone was a really cool thing just to see. Now, as for the story, I think it was slightly forgettable. It was just more magistrate stuff. And I like the magistrate things, but I don't know, just this whole future state stuff is so all over the place to me. I've harped on this plenty. I'm not going to harp on it just endlessly, but every character is in every single future state book, especially if we're talking like some of the Gotham books. Like I said, in this book, we have Jace Fox. Apparently, he's also in his next Batman book. Then they're like the Batgirls that are in the Batgirls mini are in this book as well, titled The Resistance. Same with Two-Face and Man-Bat. I don't know. A little all over the place. I felt like Future State was going to be an event, and it just really wasn't. It was kind of just like one-off stories, which is fine, but given that it was 2 months, like limited time, pretty much event time, most events run for about 2 months or 3 months, I just was expecting something else, I guess. But I did like this Nightwing story. I think it was fun. There were a lot of cool shots in here with Dick and Jace kind of back-to-back kicking ass. It was a lot of fun. I think it gave us the catharsis of a new Batman figure, and Dick and him kind of having some friction, but getting along in the end. For the next book I'm talking about, we got Catwoman, issue number 2, written by Ram V and drawn by Odo Schmidt. A really cool creative team here, taking on Catwoman in an interesting way, and I think telling a fun story. If I had to give it to you straight, I think Catwoman might be maybe the second best tie-in of Future State. Or I call them a tie-in when they're really not. It might be the second best Future State title. I'll get into, again, the next book I'm talking about, I think can compete. But this book just tells a solid story. It's about Catwoman doing this grand heist on a train. And I mean, that's a perfect Catwoman story. Ram V was writing Catwoman back during non-Future State hours. And so it's perfect that he got to kind of carry her through this. And the art by Odo Schmidt is really amazing. This book does feel like the most put together, I would say. But story-wise, there were, I guess, plot holes to me. I could just be slow. I've told you guys I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed now. But the whole heist is because Batman Bruce Wayne is like cryogenically frozen or something, and they break him out at the end, which does lead to a really sweet emotional moment where Bruce and her like reconnect, and then they have to become separated again, given the whole like they'll never stop coming for me type shit. It's that shit you can expect. But I guess the order of events confused me a little bit. I've talked about how all these books feel really disconnected, when interestingly, Catwoman is one of the only ones that I actually have seen like asterisk reference another Future State book, which was the Dark Detective book. Now, I could be completely confused. But I think this book is supposed to take place maybe before Dark Detective, but if it does, that loses me a little bit, because I thought when Bruce died, he like washed up on shore, was cryogenically frozen. And that's the thing. Maybe I have the timeline screwed up, but I think if they were gonna go with a concrete timeline, then what the hell were all the other books? I don't know. It's just not for me, maybe. But I did like this Catwoman book. Like I said, the most put together, I think maybe the strongest creative team. All right, and for my last Future State book, man, I mean, this is going to be one of the last few times I ever talk Future State. The last Future State book or books are going to be coming out next week or have already dropped. But here I'm talking about Superman Worlds of War issue number 2. Now, this was the book that I foreshadowed having probably the biggest creative team that I will have ever taken it upon myself to have read aloud. And I'm debating whether or not I should do it, but I'm going to try it just for the joke. So writing here, we have Philip Kennedy Johnson, Brandon Easton, Becky Cloonan, Michael W. Conrad, and Jeremy Adams. And then drawing, we have Mikel Janin, Valentine De Landro, Michael Avon Oming, and Saya Oum. And then colors, we have Jordi Belair, Marissa Louise, and Hi-Fi. Okay. I usually don't read creative teams when they get that big, but I did it there. I guess enjoy that if you really care for like creator credit. So as for the Superman Worlds of War book, I have conflicting feelings on it, okay? I think this book had one of the best stories across all of Future State in it, maybe rivaling Dark Detective, which was this Superman story here in the beginning by Philip Kennedy Johnson and Mikel Janin. I just loved it. I thought it did everything you want from like a mini one-off story, which is take an aspect of a character and then just kind of extrapolate it into a small vacuum story that just exemplifies that aspect of the character. And here it was that Superman will always fucking be ready to fight for innocent people. And it's just so cool. Like, and the world that Philip Kennedy Johnson weaves in the beginning here is so sweet, where Superman has been taken to this war world, literally the meaning of the title, Worlds of War. He's been taken to war world where Mongol is like forcing him through all this crazy combat. And not only that, he's tossing him into this pit where he's defending somebody. But this is the coolest shit. This is Superman's strategy. And this is what I mean. Like, it does exactly what I think all of these Future State books had to do. Superman's prerogative here was not defeating the people trying to kill the guy he's defending. His prerogative was literally slashing all the chains off of these warriors because they're all enslaved. And so his whole thing was freeing as many people. And there's this awesome scene where him and Mongol they're talking, and Mongol has him like strung up in this in chains, and Superman is telling him like, yeah, I'm not going to stop. I will not go home until I have freed every single person or being in this Coliseum. Just so cool. I love how it just seems like Philip Kennedy Johnson was so fucking ready to write Superman. And so I seriously cannot wait for him to take over the Superman mythos come in probably like a week or two. Well, and so I got the good out of the way. Now, unfortunately, guys, the reason I can't say that Superman Worlds of War was like my favorite book is because the Superman story is honestly like not even a fourth of this. Like it felt so criminally short, the amount of Superman pages. I mean, maybe it got as many pages as some of the other stuff, but this book has 4 individual stories in it. And at some point, I'm just like who was asking for some of these? So after the Superman one, we get the Mr. Miracle story, which I didn't hate, but it definitely was just really confusing, especially since it was like tying in with the Mr. Miracle story that was in Superman of Metropolis, and working in with that somehow. It just got really convoluted. It got really hard to follow. I really liked the art, and I like the character of Mr. Miracle, this like new Mr. Miracle who's not scot-free. He's actually not new. Apparently he's an older character, but it was just a little all over the place. The ending here, like I tried rereading it a couple times because I think it was kind of explaining everything, that Mr. Miracle is sort of trapped in this like time loop, which, hey, I'm like, that's really cool. But I don't know, it just escaped me. As for the Midnighter story here, I raved about the first Midnighter story, but this one didn't do it for me. I don't know why. The art did switch up, and I think the story just got really confusing. In the first one, we were following Midnighter go on a mission, and then, I mean, the mission just got really complex, and it started involving time travel, and like there was another fucking Midnighter, and he was like old. It was just really confusing out of nowhere. Like, I love that some of these writers were having ambitious ideas, don't get me wrong, but at some point, we're all a little fatigued from just like all the crazy shit going on. So our brain power is a little limited sometimes. And then the Black Racer story here at the end. I mean, that's the thing. I don't know who was asking for a Black Racer book. Not a bad character by any means, but again, like, did anybody know about Black Racer? Could just be me. I don't know. But yeah, I guess this is like the penultimate week of Future State. And I'm kind of walking out of it really lukewarm. We have, I think I have 2 Future State books next week. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I think this event had a lot of potential, and it just kind of dropped it, in my opinion. Okay, for my last section, I'm coming to the end. This episode is 100,000,000% not going to be between 20 and 30 minutes. That is what it is. It's a learning experience. I think I'm slowly shortening them as I record them. So maybe by like episode 30 or something, I'll be hitting it. But this is easily going to be my favorite section. I just kind of ranted about some of the Future State books, but there will be no ranting for the remainder of this podcast because all of these books I was not only extremely excited for, but all of them came through. I'm not even joking. Every single one of them came through. I'm going to just list them off quickly here. We have the new Iron Fist, Heart of the Dragon, number 2, Thor, number 12. Oh, geez. The Return of Black Widow with issue number 5, and then Guardians 11 and Iron Man 6. And I cannot resist. I must start with the Iron Fist book, written by Larry Hama, drawn by Dave Wachter, and colors by Niraj Menon. This Iron Fist book is easily becoming one of my favorite books on the stands. In fact, I think all 5 of these series that I'm beholding and about to talk about are like my top 5 series coming out right now. Each one of them is just so cool. And even though the Iron Fist one is only 2 in, I'm just loving it. You all know that I'm a humongous Iron Fist fan, so of course I'm going to simp for any book he has, but I think this book comes through. And I should say I'm not going to simp for every single Iron Fist book. There have been some duds, and unfortunately the most recent run, in my opinion, was a bit of a dud by Ed Bryson. One of the few series that I instantly disliked. But I think this is easily the best Iron Fist book since then, so you could say in years. It does have a bit of limited series energy, if you will, especially in this issue. I think just given the fact that it's a limited series, so it doesn't have all the time that it needs to tell these stories with perfect pacing. So sometimes you get a little, usually the problem with the limited series is that some issues are going to have like a shit ton of information and you're just like, oh my God, I don't know what the fuck is going on here. That definitely felt like this issue that they set up a ton, but do not get me wrong, amazing regardless. I love how this book is bringing in Taskmaster. He's been such an interesting figure in the Marvel Universe, I guess at the moment. He's involved in so many books, such an awesome side character, and Larry Hama is weaving him in perfectly, giving him a mission, making him pour blood all over his head while handing over the heart of the dragon of Shao Lao to some villain. I have no clue who. We're not supposed to at the moment. But that was an amazing intro scene. And then we get this awesome, just great scene with Danny speaking with this like goddess who's telling him he must defend the planet. Just so cool. And it's pulling in so much Iron Fist lore that my Iron Fist heads are going to be super happy to hear. It's bringing in a ton of elements from the 2006 run, which is heralded as like the definitive Iron Fist run by Matt Fraction and Ed Brubaker, for a couple reasons. But it brings in a lot of those elements here, mainly with the other 7 heavenly cities, and particularly with the other champions of those cities. We get 3 in this book, which was a blast to see. These are all great characters. We get Dog Brother, Fat Cobra, and the Bride of 9 Spiders. They have some interesting names, I'll give you that. But Larry Hama actually takes that run and builds such a cool plot point out of it, which is that there is the like dark 8th city and it's coming to the Earth, which is just so fucking cool. Like anybody who's a fan of the old 2006 run is just going to drool for that. And then interestingly, it's bringing in even more elements of the Marvel Universe with Wakanda here at the end. It's super cool. This book is doing everything right, if you ask me. The art's amazing. It's just great. I'm happy we're getting some dope Iron Fist. Keeping in the theme with iron, but not exactly, I don't know. I'm not going to Iron Man. I'm going to Thor issue number 12. This is a double Donny Cates week, which is very nice. He did write The King in Black, and he also did Thor here. And interestingly enough, he ties in a old comic of his in both of these. I'll get into that in a second. But of course, Donny Cates is writing, Nick Klein is drawing, and Matt Wilson is coloring. Donny Cates has just been murdering Thor. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. He has not been murdering Thor, but he's been murdering this Thor series, bringing a ton of life. I don't want to say back to the character, as in he lacked life before. I liked the end of Aaron's Thor run, but Donny Cates is taking it in a new direction that's really refreshing. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for, refreshing. And here is such a refreshing issue because Thor's not even in it, which is awesome. Donny Cates is handling these other Thors throughout the Marvel Universe, which is Jane Foster in one respect. Donald Blake is the villain here in another respect, and then Throg. Throg is the main here. He does most of the ass kicking here, which is just great. The intro scenes of him, Throg, and Donald Blake fighting was so awesome. They're like teleporting all throughout the fucking, I guess I want to say the universe or the galaxy or the Godverse or something, having this crazy epic fight. Just a blast to read. Of course, Lockjaw is involved as well. Throg and Lockjaw and Beta Ray Bill, they're all homies for some reason. But then coming to the element that I said was tied in both King in Black and as well as this book was, and I love this, it was Donny Cates tying in his original, I think this might have been the first thing he wrote for Marvel, man. I don't know actually about that. I think maybe the first thing he technically wrote was Thanos Wins. But at the same time, he was writing a Doctor Strange series. If you remember, Thanos Wins was actually a part of that legacy era that Marvel was doing. And so was Cates's Doctor Strange. And what he ties in here, and I have read his Doctor Strange, but I'm really fuzzy on it. I guess amongst fans, it's kind of considered like one of his least required reading, if you will. But he ties in the old Doctor Strange stuff where he like gets some power from the what is it, the World Tree, and gets like imbued with some Asgardian energy or something. It's because at the time Loki was becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. And he ties that in here. He also tied that in King in Black, which was sweet. Just a little callback, a little Salt Bay Donny Cates is doing on all of his Marvel books. But it's not like callbacks is all this book has going for it. I mean, the story is just fucking awesome. Donald Blake trying to chomp the World Tree down, and it's bleeding all over Thor. What more could you fucking ask for? And then that end page, okay, that end page. I'm throwing the spoiler, 3, 2, 1, with Odin on the end page there. I'm going to need some explanation. I'm going to need a little explanation for that, Donald, because as I recall, Odin had died at the end of War Realms. I could be wrong. Or forgetting something. I'm often forgetting something. But it's interesting. Odin has this new look now. He's all shaved up and bulked up and all that. He's been hitting the gym, hitting the Odin sleep too. So the Thor Donny Cates run is awesome. It just hit a year mark, right, with issue number 12. So it's just fucking great. It's great. You got to be reading Cates' Thor. But in my humble opinion, the book you absolutely should be reading right now is Black Widow. We got issue number 5 just a couple weeks ago. If you recall, Black Widow got really heavily delayed. I'm not exactly sure why. I had to skim the last issue and all that shit. But this is written by Kelly Thompson, drawn by Elena Casagrande, and colors by Jordi Belair. Now, I'm going to make this hot take. I think this is the best creative team in comics right now. I don't know. That is like a hot take to the extreme right now. But I think there's some reasoning for it, because each member of that team is in full, is in their prime, if you ask me right now. I am head over heels in love with Elena Casagrande's art. She is so badass. I seriously cannot get enough. I want her to draw every single goddamn book on the fucking rack right now. And the thing is, Jordi Belair's colors pop like crazy with her art. And they just take such cool coloring schemes with each scene. Each one has like, it can be dim and it can be bright. It's just the colors are on point. I don't know how to put it. You just have to be reading this book. But all the praise for the art aside, the story here is super, super great. I've been reading the Black Widow books over the past year or two. There was one book that came out it was by this like duo that was like a horror film director, and they wrote like a 5-parter. I liked that 5-parter. And then there was a follow-up with, I think, Jody Hauser did a 5-parter. I skipped that one. I tried the first issue and it just wasn't for me. But this is easily the best of all of that, of I would say probably most of the Black Widow for the past few years. I know a lot of people got love for the Mark Waid run. I haven't read it, so I can't say. But this is great. This is amazing. The plot is super espionage, but it's also tying in with Black Widow's character super well. The arc began with Natasha. She was mind controlled and like mind wiped and manipulated to kind of just believe that she had a normal life. And of course, all of it was stripped away from her. And that's where we come to with this issue, which is definitely the conclusion of this first arc titled The Ties That Bind. All of our other hero friends in the Black Widowverse sort of get tied in here. Hawkeye, Winter Soldier, Yelena, I think is her name, the other Black Widow, even the Red Guardian? There's so many names. I'm just pulling them left and right. But even like a whole cast of villains that are brought in, which was so welcome to see. I was so excited to see all of them. Viper being, I think, the main one, a couple like smaller league ones. But, you know, I love those small league characters. But Kelly Thompson isn't just tying in random elements of the Marvel Universe here. She is telling some like crazy sad stories. Like this issue was emotionally scarring. I mean, it's dealing with Natasha having everything she wanted and then it being ripped away from her, and she has to just kind of live with it and move on. And it's just so sad. There's this scene at the end here with her and Bucky, or James as they kept referring to him. It was so weird to read. His name is James. I kept being like, what? Oh yeah, it is James Buchanan Barnes. I always forget that. But there's this moment with just Black Widow like fainting in his arms because she's like so exhausted from the past few days. And he's just holding her. And this is a moment where the art and the writing is just lining up perfectly, because Elena Casagrande is like kind of pulling out if it's a camera effect. And then we're getting shots from like under objects through windows. It's just so creative. It's so creative. I feel like no matter how many words I just spew about this book, I can never give it enough praise. But the end here is also very notable. Black Widow is taking on a new suit, taking on a new mission, a new era. A lot to be excited about. I think the next issue of this book would serve really well as like a jumping on point, issue number 6, if you haven't been reading. But if you haven't been reading, what the fuck? Because this book has been great. Like seriously, I was getting like mad earlier as I was reading it, because I'm like, no one talks about this book. I love it. I love it. The cover is great by Adam Hughes. Amazing. But another emotional, very emotional book, The Guardians of the Galaxy, issue number 11, Liftoff in 2, as the cover would suggest. This is written by Al Ewing, drawn by Juan Cabal, and colors by Federico Blee. Like I said, emotional as fuck. This whole series has been so emotional. I have been loving the Al Ewing Guardians run. I used to always preface like he's switching up the team format, because that was during the beginning couple issues where he really was switching the team format up a lot. And now he's sort of returned to a little bit of normalcy, but you know, we're 11 issues in, so it all feels normal. I think the last issue was a King in Black tie-in of this book, which I really did like nonetheless. It involved Peter Quill coming out of this like random afterlife limbo that he was in. He's come back to life. And that's a lot of the emotional appeal that we get in this book, which is what I said should have been maybe the follow-up. It's a whole thing. I won't get into a huge rant about it, but I think this issue should have been issue number 10. And in my opinion, they should have just not tied into it. Maybe that's just me. The tie-in wasn't bad by any means. Peter Quill like blasts Null completely or something like that with like these new Star-Lord powers that he has. It was a cool way to display those powers, don't get me wrong. But what I was really looking forward to was the character confrontations that happen in this book, particularly with Rich Rider and Gamora. Really, Gamora. I was looking out like, what the fuck is Gamora gonna do when she sees Peter Quill again? And oh boy, this issue is maybe it's not as emotionally wrenching as Black Widow, but it's almost getting there. Another thing I like about this book is that it is tying, it's almost like a fucking Annihilation tie-in. You guys remember Annihilation from like 2006 or something like that? The old, I think Kieran Gillen wrote that event back in the day. A great event. I mean, one of the best Marvel events. It is really amazing, and it does so many awesome things with this whole space mythos. It really builds the modern space mythos easily because, I mean, Annihilation sets up Annihilation Conquest, which ends up setting up the Guardians, which is Marvel space right now. So I love that Al Ewing is saying, hey, I know all of this would not be here without Annihilation. So let's do some tie-in in. I loved the way they did it. They bring our characters back to some of the original locations of the Annihilation event. Super cool, created a ton of emotional appeal there. Richard Rider is experiencing therapy with Doc Samson, which I'm loving that plot line. Such an awesome plot line. I just really like the way Al Ewing is telling this story. He's going super emotional with it, but he's also going really weird with it, as is exemplified by the villains here. The villains are the, like, what are they calling them? They're basically the entire Greek mythos, if you will. I forget, they say it in here. I can't remember. But it's like the whole Greek mythos of Zeus, that's the one. But they're like the dark gods or something like that. It's a whole thing. Like I said, it's getting weird, but it's also getting really cool because these guys killed Peter. Peter killed them or something like that. And there's revenge. There's some revenge throughout there. Peter is not the same now that he's died and came back. That was the big thing with him and Rich in this issue, was they were just kind of like, it's almost this awkward feeling of like, you're different now, I'm the same, but that's different to you. Just super cool. I love the way, the thoughtful way that Al Ewing is approaching this Guardians run. And like I said, lift off into the next issue, I can only expect has some particularly crazy shit in it. So I can't wait to see that. It will be the year mark of this run. It'll be issue number 12. But there's honestly not a lot of like story progression as far as that goes. It's just kind of our characters getting reacquainted with themselves, and they're about to kick some ass in the next issue. That is a similar thing to the Iron Man issue that we got this week, with Christopher Cantwell writing, K-Fu drawing, and Frank D. Armada on the colors. This issue, like the Guardians, is definitely a reaction to the events of the last issue. Which, that being said, issue 5 of Iron Man, holy shit, a crazy ep. I mean, almost everyone gets fucked up in it, except Korvac, of course, who's been our villain here with Cantwell re-embracing the entire Iron Man villain scene, which is awesome. I had zero knowledge of any single Iron Man villain outside of the one guy that was in like Iron Man 3 or something. I don't even remember his name. Oh, the Mandarin. But I don't even know any Mandarin stories. I think he's dead in the comics right now because of the Punisher. Neither here nor there. Korvac is the villain now, and he's bringing in a bunch of really niche Iron Man villains like Blizzard and Unicorn. And guys, villains you don't recognize. I'll just say that. But like I said, this is reacting a lot to the events of the last issue. Iron Man got fucked up. His neck literally got broken. Hellcat got really fucked up. She's going through a bunch of emotional shit right now with Korvac, like fucking with her head. And then the most emotionally devastating part of it all was Misty Knight, Gargoyle, Scarlet Spider, and then like Mr. Toad or something like that. They all seem to die in an explosion, and it wasn't the last page. So I'm like, okay, you can't use the last page, doesn't count excuse. Like, it counted. Well, of course it didn't. They're not just going to kill off a bunch of characters like that. But there are some repercussions, and I'll say that much. I like how Cantwell he's enforcing repercussions on our characters, but he's not just like letting them, I don't know, hang out to dry, right? Because like Iron Man's neck, or Tony's neck, does legitimately get broken. However, it's not like in real life where if your neck was broken, you most likely would not be able to go kick some ass in an Iron Man suit. I love the solution that Cantwell has for that, which is that Tony can't take off his armor. That if he does, I guess it could be fatal, because it's like keeping his spine locked into place. Like, there's a lot of realism elements throughout this story, which is really cool. But as for that cliffhanger on our team getting like wiped out in that explosion, it doesn't happen. Gargoyle is able to put up like a portal, not a portal, a like force field. Except it somehow like saps some of his like bio energy or something. Apparently there's a whole thing going on with like biotech or mythical bio, something like that. See, he's an old character. I can't get into the intricacies of his powers, but he gets fucked up. All of our friends survive, but Gargoyle is super fucked up. Iron Man's super fucked up. Hellcat's super fucked up. Everybody's fucked up. Korvac in the meanwhile, he is acquiring Galactus's ship and flying away in it. It's just nuts. Like this Iron Man story it's being realistic as hell, but simultaneously being like just outlandish and crazy. And speaking of outlandish, or I should say out of space, or out in space, outer space, that's where we leave off here with our crew. Not only do we get some great roadie stuff here at the end, so War Machine is back. He's going to be like it seems like a main side character, but that's where our crew is taken off to. They're going into space. They're trying to pursue Korvac. And that's kind of where we leave off at the end of this issue. Very excited to see where this series goes. Cantwell is the king of side characters, as he is shown with Hellcat here. So I can't wait to see him take on Rhodey. It seems like he's really just picking a main character with a lot of badass side characters and saying, oh, cool, now I can write these side characters. But just an awesome run. So many awesome runs from Marvel right now. Like, and all of these kind of started recently. Only one of these is on issue 12. Only one of these is a year in. So there's so many good series coming out from Marvel right now that are not event books. Like all 5 of these books, guys, please go get them. They're all so damn good. I just can't say enough about them.
Well, this was fun.
Until next time.
And that is all the books that I have to talk about this week. As you can tell, this went absurdly longer than I wanted to. I mean, it's some shit, right? When I say I want this to be about this amount of time at the beginning of the episode, and then it's super duper long by the end of it. It is what it is. I guess it's more content for y'all, but I'm trying to make it nice and concise for you. Sorry if I'm rambling at all throughout this episode, but I got a lot of books and I got a lot of thoughts on them. Like I said, I'll get better at it. But here is my top 5 of the week, ranking all these books here. I have to say, and I say this every week, this was hard. This was hard as shit. I love so many of the books that are coming out right now, especially this week. Like I was saying, these last 5 Marvel books alone could easily comprise a top 5 any week that all these drop. But I think I got it narrowed down. I think it's a nice mix of everything. So here we go. All of these books, easily I could wake up tomorrow and flip my order entirely. But without further ado, here we go. This first one's kind of an upset. For my number 5, I'm giving it to Iron Fist, Heart of the Dragon, issue number 2. I mean, is it an upset? It's still in the top 5. Yes, but I mean, I thought that one was a shoo-in for number 1. I just loved a lot of books this week. What can I say? But still an amazing series. For my number 4, and hey, I might get some flack for this one, but that's okay. I'm giving it to Batman Catwoman issue number 3. I like the book. I like where it's going. I like some of the elements in it. And I do like Clayman's art, okay? Even if it's horny as hell. It is what it is. For my number 3 spot, I have to include this somewhere in here. Shadow Doctor issue number 3. I mean, my intro tagline for the book speaks its volumes. Unlike any comic I have ever read in my life. Please check out Shadow Doctor. Honestly, like if you treat any of this top 5 as a recommendation, please read Shadow Doctor. I guarantee you it has not been read by enough people. Such a cool, realistic, interesting story. All right, for my number 2, this book had to be in here as well. King in Black number 4. I mean, I don't even need to say anything else. Just an awesome event. I mean, issue number 5 of the event is probably going to be my number 1. It'll probably be like my number 0 or something, because it's just going to transcend everything, like Eddie is at the moment. Venom jokes. Anyway, my number 1, the number 1 comic of the week, my pick of the week. It had to be this one. It had to be this one, okay? And I say that about every pick of the week, but it really does. There's always one obvious pick of the week. And then the 4 below it are just, it is what it is. But my pick of the week, 100 million %, Black Widow issue number 5. God damn, not only was I so excited for the return of this book, but then it met every single expectation I had and more. Like, it just made me want to cry and buy every single Black Widow issue I can find. I just love it. I think this book is doing everything it needs to do and setting up such a cool series. Like I was saying, the next issue might be a good hopping on point, but why hop on when you could just read the first 5 issues? So damn it, go read Black Widow. It is one of the best series Marvel's putting out right now and one of the most underrated. All right, now for the sweetest, most juiciest part of the show, which is me telling you what books I'm going to be talking about next week. And as has been the theme, as I've been late and tardy, like an asshat, I currently have all the books that I'm going to be talking about already in hand because next week, quote unquote, has already came and gone. But that being said, I'm holding a bunch of awesome books right here. And I'm really excited for this next week for a couple reasons. One reason being, it is a unique week like no other where I actually, and I almost can't believe this, I have more indie books than I do either Marvel or DC. Not combined, but then either or. I have 4 indie books. So all my indie heads out there, y'all are going to be excited for the next step. And I'll just shout out the book I'm easily most excited for. I'm going to be grabbing for this book first. 2 Moons from Image Comics. It's a Civil War horror story with Valerio Giordano drawing. I can't wait to read it. Then, of course, another Image book, the continuation of an amazing run that they have, Department of Truth, issue number 6. We're switching up artists here, interestingly enough. So I can't wait to see what that turns out like. The first arc just ended on the last issue, so kicking into a new arc ought to be cool. And then for my last Image book of the week, we got Crossover number 4. I mean, super exciting. Crossover's been awesome. But then the last indie book I have is going to be Bloodshot issue number 1. I've had mixed feelings on Bloodshot here and there, so I'm excited to get into it. But then Marvel and DC, I got 3 each. From Marvel, I got Return of the Valkyries issue number 3, King in Black. Then I got Wolverine issue number 10. Ooh, and I'm excited for this one. X-Men issue number 18. A big X week next week for my X fans and my indie fans. Y'all are definitely going to be excited. As for DC, I got 3 books, 2 of them Future State, 1 of them not. The one non-Future State book is, and I'm excited for this one, Harley Quinn, the Batman White Knight Presents. This is book number 5. We got a little bit of Red Hood action on the cover. What the fuck is that about? We will find out. And then my last 2 Future State books that I think I'm going to be getting in general, which I'm really excited for both of these. These are probably going to be 2 of the best so far in general in all of Future State. The conclusion of Dark Detective. Super pumped for that. It's been the best. It's been the best Future State book. And then an interesting one, a new one, House of L, Superman House of L, issue number 1. I guess it's a one-shot. I think this is really going to be the kickoff of Philip Kennedy Johnson's Superman run coming in March in the Infinite Frontier. So many books to be excited about. And it's actually kind of a light week. I think I only listed off, 10 books there. So really not that bad. I should hopefully have it out sooner or later. I think that episode is going to be my last late one. I'm putting my money on it. Don't hold me to it though. But that being said, I have talked way too much, plenty, one could say. So I'm going to hop out of here. Thank you guys for listening so much. I'm trying out new stuff here. Let me know if you really missed the news segment. Please comment below, tweet at me, DM me, send me an email. Either way, just let me know. I want to hear your thoughts. Feedback is super valuable for the show. You guys don't even realize. But if you like the show, of course, subscribe, like, follow, leave me a rating, do whatever you can. It all helps out, seriously. And that is going to be it for me, guys. Again, late episode, weird episode. It is what it is. But I'll see you in the next week. And I'll also see you for WandaVision episode 9 coming this Friday. And like I teased in that episode, I got a bit of a surprise for that episode. So please look out for that. But thank you guys for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later.